Couple of days out from the Super Bowl and still talk about NFL teams, especially when it comes to the Chicago Bears and will they still be from Chicago. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can wake up with us each and every weekday morning for the latest headlines. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter in your inbox, but also subscribe to us here anywhere you get the Center Square. Stay up to date. So obviously, Super Bowl is a big deal. Questions about taxpayer costs for a facility in California, for instance, with law enforcement personnel and so on. But you also have the economic impact from Major League Sports. And the Bears obviously have been in the headlines for years now, being that they want to find a different facility from their current Soldier Field in Chicago proper. Now, they went out and looked at land in Arlington Heights, actually purchased some land in Arlington Heights. Big old race course. They're hoping to make an entertainment complex, billions of dollars in possible investments, but economic impact. And they're looking for some kind of incentives. But then you get Indiana working into the mix, and our Indiana legislators and the governor there are going to be able to sway the Chicago Bears to move out of Chicago, out of Illinois, and take up shop in Indiana. It's an ongoing question. Legislators at the Illinois State House have pushed back on the idea of giving the Bears some taxpayer incentive, and the Bears you're looking at all their options. But Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's been integral in these conversations, and he was holding a news conference yesterday in a southern, in the Marion area, and he was asked about a bill that allows for star bonds. And star bonds, you can get into a lot of the weeds here, but it's an investment tool of sorts that can allow for multiple investors to come in and invest in a larger project. So they're announcing, the star bonds and the plans that they want to, bring in as much investment as possible. But there were questions as if this law that legislators passed during fall veto session in October, is it for the Bears? Is that something that the Bears are going to be able to tap into? Pritzker says not so fast.
This was not written for the Bears. I think there's, as you know, that this can be used by local governments. We're not specifically looking at it that way. Perhaps the Bears are. But there's a lot of discussion, a lot of ongoing conversation with the Bears, and indeed, frankly, progress that's been made. So I'm pleased about that. But, I'm going to let the Bears talk about what it is that they want to get done and how they want to get it done. And I'm obviously involved in negotiations, and so are my entire team, as well as the members of the legislature.
Show the governor talking about how he believes that there's progress being made and what that progress looks like. Could it be some of the so-called normal incentives like infrastructure and things like that?
We are helping businesses, as I talked about some of the tools that we use. We are helping businesses build infrastructure, for example, which they would need, and other things that are sort of available, again, to any business that is growing or building something new in the state of Illinois that's putting people to work. Those are normal incentives, and that's what I would expect that we will end up with the Bears, depending on where it goes.
So where are they going to go? Will they go to Indiana or will they stay in Illinois? Now, keep in mind, the Bears aren't the only thing that other states are courting. You've got, Indiana previously, as we've talked about in the past, looking to have a, redistricting to redraw the boundaries of Indiana and Illinois. Now, Iowa is getting into the mix. Iowa has filed legislation to essentially do the same thing Indiana's doing. If you go to the Iowa legislature's website, you can pull this up. This is House File 2141. And it essentially spells out an Iowa-Illinois Boundary Adjustment Committee established for the purpose of discussing and recommending whether to adjust the boundary between the state of Iowa and the state of Illinois by transferring one or more Illinois counties along the Iowa border to the state of Iowa. Lays out the commission members, 6 individuals from the state of Iowa who are not members of the General Assembly. You've also got 5 individuals from the state of Illinois to be appointed. So 6 versus 5. And this would set up a schedule for a first meeting of September 1st, 2026. in the committee's first meeting. They shall elect a chairperson and so on. So you can see here, this would establish the Iowa-Illinois Boundary Adjustment Committee to recommend whether the boundaries between the two states should change with the reports that would be due to the Iowa and Illinois General Assemblies. So Iowa now looking at this after Indiana has already done a boundary adjustment commission. And if you missed the headlines months ago in October, they actually had a meeting. And here's some of what they talked about in that meeting for the Indiana Border Commission redraw.
Did Illinois send anybody? As far as I know, Illinois hasn't taken that up. They haven't appointed their members. They're allowed to have 5 members appointed under Illinois law. They haven't done that yet. They can do that if they choose at any time. But for now, it's just the 6 members appointed from Indiana. It wasn't a disrespect to not give them equal numbers. I think the question was, how do you have a quorum if Illinois chooses not to participate initially? So that idea was, I think, was just that, hey, let's allow the group to meet and get organized so we can continue to invite Illinois to participate if they'd like to.
Again, Illinois never appointed the members from Illinois to join that Indiana Boundary Adjustment Commission. So they're looking at Illinois counties. They're looking at economic impact. They're looking at, for instance, untapped resources the commission heard about in October.
The Illinois Basin contains huge amounts of shale oil and natural gas that is barely tapped in Illinois, but is being drilled and fracked in neighboring states such as Indiana. Now, this shows the gas production, and as you can see, the eastern half of the Illinois Basin in Indiana is being well taken advantage of, but the western half is hardly any economic activity.
Now, any economic activity, they point out, dealing with natural gas, and the headline they had pulled up there says Illinois' first fracking permits returned by Kansas company, citing costly regulations. In Illinois, you hear the mantra from business groups regularly. Illinois is a very expensive and burdensome place to do business with higher costs than neighboring states. Now, the Illinois-Indiana Boundary Adjustment Commission that met back in October, they also heard from some people in Illinois, not government officials, not people that were appointed by the governor or the Illinois legislature, but they heard from regular Illinois individuals, one of them being G.H. Merritt, who we've talked to with Illinois in Focus and the Center Square about their efforts for New Illinois. And she told the Indiana Commission that they want to kick themselves out, not necessarily join a state like Indiana.
Our biggest grievance is that we're not represented. We don't have government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We want to kick ourselves out of Illinois. Instead, Governor Pritzker calls Indiana's efforts a stunt. And last month, he suggested if we don't like the way things are run in Illinois, we can leave. We admire how Indiana has managed its finances and has a $2 billion surplus while we drown in $200 billion of pension debt.
Now, that's one big question here that these couple of states are going to have to deal with is how to split that debt up. If indeed this happens, which everybody who watches this closely feels it's a long shot if Indiana is ever going to take on Illinois counties, or if Illinois would ever split into 2 different states, as New Illinois is hoping for. There's a lot of different steps that have to happen. You have to get Congress involved. There has to be referendum, a whole host of things as trying to form a new state out of a state. I'm not sure how it would be with redrawing boundaries, as Indiana and now Iowa are hoping to do, and snagging up some Illinois counties. So the big question is, again, the debt. How do you split that debt up? Illinois' got a rather large taxpayer burden. Do you just go by how much debt there is that government has and split it by the number of taxpayers you bring it on? And then that would be, you write a check from Indiana or Iowa to say, okay, we're taking these number of residents and these lands of these counties, and here's a check, Illinois, for their share of the debt. I don't know. Again, these are ongoing conversations that apparently Indiana's having. Their next meeting, while the last one was in October, they did say during that meeting they hope to have another one in the Indiana-Illinois Boundary Adjustment Commission early this year. So will it happen in the first quarter? We'll be watching to see if it pops up. But Iowa has the bill in their legislature now. Will they advance that and make their own commission to investigate this, and will Illinois continue to step out of that one? So clearly a lot of questions as this is a developing issue, and it's been developing for quite some time, especially in the state of Illinois, where a third of Illinois counties have done non-binding resolutions to essentially split the state into two. So you've got that in the mix as well. But back to the Bears. Will they stay around in Illinois? Governor J.B. Pritzker says he likes the possibilities.
I never take anything as if it's a bluff. I mean, I'm always concerned about making sure that we're attracting businesses or keeping businesses in the state of Illinois. So we're in consistent conversation with the Chicago Bears, have been, by the way, for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years. And specifically, I think there's a real possibility that many of the things that we put on the table to work with the Bears on are things that they're willing to do to stay in the state of Illinois.
What that looks like, is it going to be just the infrastructure they're wanting to do for the Arlington Heights facility? Is it going to be some other different tax incentives that they may carve out for the Bears? We'll be watching, and hopefully you will be too, here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning with The Center Square. And get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com.